Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. This is the introduction lesson. We're just going to talk a little bit about the best way of practicing the guitar for absolute beginners. I'll give you some top tips and some advice on the best ways of starting out. So the most important thing when you first start, I'd say number one thing is make sure your guitar is set up properly. What I mean by that is that the guitar is first of all in tune. So if you haven't tuned the guitar before, first thing I would suggest going to get is a tuner to tune the guitar up, and we'll talk about that in the next lesson. If you've not had much experience of playing guitar before, or you don't have any friends that play guitar and can help you tune, then I'd advise taking it into the shop for the first time, get the guitar checked out, perhaps get if it's an old guitar, if you've not bought it from a shop and you've maybe perhaps been given it as a present, or it's a second-hand guitar. The most important thing is having new strings on the guitar, at least fresh strings, and also the action setup. What I mean by that is the spacing, the distance the strings are away from the frets is not too high. If that's very high here, if the strings are quite far away, then it makes it more difficult to play and it might put you off playing. So it's quite important to have the guitar set up properly, and a thing called intonation done as well, which means that the guitar is in tune properly even when it's tuned up. So these are small things, but they're really important, because if you don't have a guitar that plays well, it's going to put you off. One other thing I'd suggest as well is having a comfortable chair to sit in. So when you're practicing, try not to sit down in a chair that's uncomfortable, the sofa or something like that. Have a standard kind of chair that you use in the kitchen with a reasonable height, and then get yourself comfortable. That's really important. So that's two tips I would say that are really important before you start. Other things I would suggest doing is have a practice diary, either one that you write down or you put into your iPad or your phone. So have something that keeps a note of what you're practicing. So it's really important this, because what you want to do is continually be moving on. So you always want to kind of keep a note of what you're working on. So for example, a good idea would be to say have 3 things to do in your practice routine daily. One of them might be practicing chords, one of them might be practicing scales, another one might be practicing rhythm, and then practicing songs. So there could be 3 things, the 4th thing could be a bonus, and then the following week you might do a different scale, or you might do a different type of chords or different chords. So again, if you follow the structure of the course, then you'll be given new things to do all the time. So it's really important to keep moving on and challenging yourself. But keep a regular practice diary, and then try and get into a good routine. So doing at least 15 minutes a day, 10 to 15 minutes on a daily basis, 5 days a week would be good. I would suggest, again, another thing I would always do is have your guitar out and have it ready to play. So if you buy a guitar stand so you can put it out, so you have it, don't put it in the case, because as soon as you put it in the case it can put you off practicing, because you have to take it out of the case. So if you can, have the guitar somewhere where you can just grab it and start playing it. So again, a guitar stand's a good thing for that, so you can put it in the corner of the room. It's a nice decorative item as well, and it's a good talking point as well if someone comes around. So have the guitar out if you can. I'd say, when we're doing the modules, there's different modules and different levels, but try and follow the modules and be patient. So basically each module is designed so we're always moving on and giving something a fresh challenge to do, but it's also done in such a way that you're always learning something new, but it's not too difficult. So if you start kind of in the middle of the course, it can put you off again because some of the challenges might be too difficult for you. So it's always worthwhile starting at the beginning if you're an absolute beginner, and starting and learning properly. All the things I teach you will be things that will be valuable and will help you to progress fairly quickly. One other thing I'd suggest again is learning songs. So learning songs is a great way of improving, because obviously it gives you motivation, and when you start learning songs it feels like you're putting what you learn, the chord shapes and the scales, into practice, and also you can practice soloing over backing tracks. The good thing nowadays is there's lots of options on YouTube, so you can go on and practice along with other people, or you can practice along with backing tracks, and especially for soloing, so you can put lots of different types of backing tracks on and then practice your solo playing with them, and it's great fun. Try to set yourself realistic goals. That's another thing. So don't be too ambitious at the beginning. You want to move slowly and progress and learn everything properly. So set yourself realistic targets. Say, for example, you want to learn a song. Say it's going to take me a few months to do that. It's really difficult to learn very, very quickly. You can learn the guitar in a short space of time and play songs quite quickly. But again, you want to set yourself realistic targets and don't push yourself too hard. Be patient. Enjoy the experience of learning to play the guitar. The guitar is a great fun instrument. It's always worthwhile if you have anybody else that plays or you have a friend that plays a bit of guitar, to maybe sit with them and play, because it's one of those instruments that's very sociable. You can sit down and have fun with other people, even if you've got a few chords, and you can solo and kind of try different things out together. Or another instrument, a vocalist, or another instrument, again, because the guitar is a great instrument for accompanying people. So again, if you can get involved with other people, if there's clubs or if there's anybody locally that plays another instrument, or you've got a friend or relative, then maybe that's an idea. See if you can speak to them and sometimes just have a bit of fun with them. Use backing tracks to practice. I always find nowadays backing tracks are so much fun. I use them all the time. They're a really good way of learning how to practice or play the guitar. You can use them for practicing chords to improve your timing, but also to understand how chords work against different chord progressions, and also scales as well. If you want to learn how to solo and learn to use your scales, it's really important to practice with backing tracks, because you start to hear how the scales sound, but also you learn about the rhythm as well and how to approach that, so that when you do get into a situation where you're playing with other musicians, you've already done kind of a little bit of practice playing along with drums, bass and guitar or other instruments. So again, backing tracks are a brilliant way of improving quickly. And finally, remember the 3 P's: practice, really important, patience and perseverance, because you've got to persevere. So have fun, enjoy the instrument. It's a great instrument, and everything I teach you will be valuable. You've got some great ideas in each module, and I've got a unique way of teaching that helps you to progress much quicker than most other tutors that teach, because I've had many years experience of knowing what works and what doesn't work. So if you follow the modules and then you follow the lessons, you'll progress much quicker. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're just going to talk a little bit about the parts of the guitar now. So what I'm going to show you on this acoustic guitar is the parts. So basically at this end here, we've got this part here is called the headstock. That's the head of a guitar, and on there we've got our tuning pegs, which help us to keep the guitar in tune. On this one, you've got 3 on this side, and it's these tune the bass strings. On this side, these tune the higher strings, the treble strings, basically. Then we have the neck here. This is this part that runs up and down here. We call this the neck. And on the front of the neck, we call this that fingerboard. Basically, that's the fingerboard. And on the fingerboard, we've got frets, these metal strips. And again, that helps us to find where we play our notes on the guitar. This part here, where the strings go over, this is called the nut. And it can be made out of different materials. This one's made out of plastic, but it can be made out of bone or the materials as well. On the other end, we've got what's called the bridge. This is this section here. And the bridge, again, the strings go over there, and that's really important because that goes into the body and that creates the resonance for the strings to give us our sound. This is the body of the guitar here, and then we have the sound hole here where the sound comes out. Inside the sound hole, this one's got a little volume control. So again, with some acoustic guitars, they have microphones or pickups inside them. And again, this one you can plug into an amplifier here. And this is called the strap button, so that's where the strap goes there. Some guitars have that and some don't. What we have at this end is a thing called a truss rod cover, and underneath there's a little, you can put an Allen key in here, and then you can straighten the neck out if it goes out of alignment. And again, that's quite important. Usually you have to take it to a shop or a luthier to have that done. So that's pretty much all the parts of the guitar on the acoustic guitar. I'm now going to just talk to you a little bit about the electric guitar. It's very similar. The only difference really is that you have pickups on the electric guitar. So on the electric guitar, it's pretty much the same idea. Here you've got the 6 machine heads, but this time they're all on one side. Again, it's the same principle. These tune the guitar up, obviously. You have the nut here. This is called the headstock here. And again, the neck here. And obviously this is the body. This is a solid chunk of wood. This is a strap buttons here. Again, that holds the straps in place. And then here we have a metal bridge this time. And that's, again, not all guitars have metal bridges. Some have made out of different materials, but this one's made out of brass. And here we have what's called the pickups. These are these things here. These are called single coil pickups, these ones. And they've got little magnets inside them. These actually are like little microphones, basically, and pick up the sound of the guitar. In terms of the strings, this is the thinnest string on this side. That's the first string. And then second string, third string, fourth string, fifth string, sixth string. So the 6th string is the heaviest gauge on this side. So it goes from 6 to 1 basically. Also there's little dots here, the markers, and that's the inlay that helps us to find our way around the guitar when we're playing the guitar as well. So here you've got double dots at the 12th fret, and then you've got a single dot at the 3rd fret, one at the 5th fret, one at the 7th fret, and one at the 9th fret. And that really helps us when we're moving around the guitar to look down and visually see where we are when we're playing. In terms of amplifying the guitar, we have a volume control here, and that turns the pickup up. So if we have this switch here at the front, that switches this pickup on, and that tends to be a smoother or softer sound. And so we can use that one for kind of rhythm guitar. You can also use it for lead as well, but it gives a smoother sound. If I go to the middle one in this guitar, it's both pickups on. And then if I go to the back pickup, back switch, it's just the back pickups on. And we have what's called a tone control, and that basically just adds treble and bass to the sound. So if you want less treble, less brightness, you just turn it down. Generally, I tend to keep it turned up, but some guitars, if it's too bright, then I will turn it down a little bit. And that's where we plug the guitar in, obviously there. And you can see it's quite a thin guitar and quite lightweight, this one. And this is like designed on a Telecaster shape, basically. So you'll see quite a few different shapes. This is a classic kind of Telecaster sounding guitar. So that's all the parts of the guitar. What we're going to talk about next is tuning the guitar, which is obviously very important. So we'll go into that in a second. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're now going to talk about tuning the guitar. So there's two methods that you can use. So we're going to look at the tuner first of all. So with our tuners, there's different types. This is a clip-on tuner, so you can see you just clip this onto the guitar here, and that then picks up the frequency of the strings and keeps us in tune. So I'll switch it off just there, and as this one's nice and bright, you can see there, when it turns on, it picks up the sound of the string. So there, that's picking up the 6th string, which is the open heaviest string, that one there. Okay, now this is E. Okay, so when I play this note here, we're looking to get both of these green lights on there, basically. I'm going to detune it now, so watch this. So it's going to go down, so you can see it goes down to what's called D sharp there, and it's gone red. So we need to get it to E. So it goes in alphabetical order, obviously. So the next note after D, D sharp, it's going up, it's starting to sound like it's coming up towards E, and you can see the little red dot there is coming up. And when it hits that green light and both come on, that tells me it's in tune. So now that first note, the 6th string, is in tune. So that's E. The next note, the 5th string, this one here, should be A. And again, it's slightly out of tune. Now you can see both lights aren't on. So again, I'm going to turn that one up so that both green lights come on. There we go. Now what you might find, what I tend to do is I detune the guitar first. So if I'm finding, for example, here it's D, I'll bring it down a little bit. I like to go down and then go into the note. Find that works much better. So there's C sharp, so we're going up now. It's coming towards the D, as you can see. And then when we get both lights on, we know we're in tune. There we go. So that's D. I'll go a little bit faster now. So G's already in tune. And then B's the next note. Again, that's slightly out there. We've got both on. And finally, we've got another E on the top, the thinnest string. So the notes are E, A, D, G, B, and then back to E again. So we've got two E's. Got a low E and a high E on the guitar. Okay, then what I tend to do is I'll check it with a chord. So you won't be able to do this yet because we haven't learned any chords, but once we learn a few chords, you can check your guitar's in tune by using an E major shape, which is all 6 strings. And we use that as what I call a reference chord. So we get used to the sound of that chord, and then we can kind of tell the guitar sounds pleasant, it sounds in tune. Okay, so that's tuning with a tuner. Okay, if you have not had any experience of using tuners before, take a little bit of practice. But you know, it's not too difficult to use a tuner. Again, what I would suggest, if you haven't done this already, as I say, put a new set of strings on, perhaps get your friend or go into a shop and get them to help you tune it for the first time. When you put new strings on, they tend to go out of tune a little bit for the first few days or the first few hours, so you tend to have to like let them settle in, so you'll need to keep tuning up. But the important thing is always check the guitar's in tune before you start practicing, because if it's not, it doesn't sound great. You play a chord and it sounds terrible basically if it's not in tune. So that's the first method, just using a tuner. The other thing you can do is use a tuning fork or another instrument. For example, I'm going to use the piano because it's here behind me. So I can find, let's say I find the note A on the guitar, okay, on the piano, sorry. There's A there. So that's A, and we're looking to make our A string, which is the 5th string, sound the same as that one. So you can hear, when I play that note, and I play my open 5th string, it should sound the same. If it doesn't, it sounds like this. I'm going to detune the A string now. So it doesn't sound good. So we need to tune that up till it hits that note. So again, I can hear it slightly flat, so I'm going to go up a bit. And there, we now have have that note in tune. Now we can then use that note as a reference note, that A. So what we do is we use the 6th string at the 5th fret to hear that they should both sound the same. If they don't, the A, we know the A is now in tune. Okay. So, but let's say, for example, this note's not in tune, the open 6th string. I'm going to detune it now. So that's out of tune. So listen, when I play that note, when I fret it there at the 6th, on the 5th fret on the 6th string, and play those two notes together, they don't sound the same. So what we need to do is make that E string, the open 6th string, sound the same when we do that. So again, you have to kind of turn it, put your finger back, till both notes sound exactly the same. Again, this takes a little bit of practice. It's good practice for your ears, though. You start to hear when they're in tune. So you can hear, they both sound the same now. Okay, again, this takes a lot of practice. So the next note we want to tune is the 4th string. So what I'm going to do now is put my finger here on the 5th string, the 5th fret, play that note, and then play the open 4th string. Okay, I'm doing it this way so you can show. You could also do it this way, it doesn't matter, as long as you play the 5th fret on the 5th string. And I'm playing the open 4th string. Now you can hear they sound both the same. I'm going to detune the 4th string now. So look, that's out of tune. Now listen. Doesn't sound good. So what we need to do is keep turning that tuning peg till they both sound the same. And again, you have to keep bringing your finger back so you play that note. Now you can hear there, they both sound the same. And again, we do the same thing on the 4th string at the 5th fret. And then we play the open 3rd string. And they both sound the same to me. Okay, the only one you need to change is on the 3rd string. So the 3rd string, you go to the 4th fret, and then you play the open 2nd string. And again, they both should sound the same. And then finally go back to the 5th fret and play the 5th fret on the 2nd string and the open 1st string. Now I'm going to detune the open 1st string so you can hear what it sounds like when it's out of tune. Oh, that doesn't sound good. So we need to turn it up a little bit. Again, they both sound like they're in tune now. So we play our reference chord. Sounds nice, they're all in tune. So really, tuning like that, it's a little bit more difficult. It's great practice if you've got a good ear for music, or if you play another musical instrument, you kind of know a little bit about, frequencies, then you can kind of get used to that. And that's a good way, again, of developing your ears. And also, if you don't have a tuner, if you go in someone's house and they don't have a tuner, again, using a note as a reference note is a good way of tuning guitar. So that's definitely one I would practice as well, even if you've got a tuner, just to develop your ears as well. So I would suggest, if you're kind of inexperienced, get yourself a tuner, practice tuning. As I say, the only thing you've got to watch out for, and this is the kind of thing that I said at the beginning of the lesson, is when you first tune a guitar, be careful, because if you tune it too high to start with, sometimes you can break a string, like a 1st or 2nd string, these thinner strings here, because if you turn it too much, they'll snap basically. So you just have to be a little bit careful when you first do your tuning to get it into tune the way you want it. So the thing to do to start with, as I say, is if you have not experienced, take it into a shop. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. I'm now going to talk to you about chord boxes and tablatures. It's really important when we're learning guitar to know what these do. So first of all, the chord boxes are basically like this. So if you're looking at the guitar, you can see beside me there, got a little box. So these are the frets here marked in the box, and then you've got the nut here, and usually it tells you where to put the fingers. So for example, if I'm playing an E chord, it tells me to put the finger here. There's a little dot, finger here and finger here. You can see that shape there. Looks like that on the guitar. Although when we hold the guitar, obviously it's like this, so visually it looks different. But generally the chord boxes are this way, okay? So when you're seeing a guitar, for example, a G chord, you can see beside me there, that's where the finger's going there. It's telling you to put it at the 3rd fret, the little dot. And then where there's 2 X's, that means you don't strum from that string. So the 2 X's mean you're not strumming that string. So for example, that G chord is strumming from the 4th string. Whereas if you look at the E major chord shape, you can see that dot's there, that dot's there, and that dot's there. That E major chord shape, there's no X's, which means we're strumming all 6 strings. Okay, so that's how the chord boxes work. There's also tablature as well. So let's talk a little bit about tablature. So what tablature is it's kind of easy way of music reading. So basically it gives us where to play the notes on the guitar. So for example, if you look we've got a little little tablature exercise there. So for example, on the C major scale, it tells me to play at the first fret, and it's on the second string there. You can see that visually, and then it goes up to the third fret on the second string. So there I'm playing the first fret up to the third fret, okay? And then if we move on, it tells me to play the open first string, and then the first fret, and then the third fret. So with tablature, there's basically 6 strings there, and it tells me, one tells me the first fret on the second string if it's marked, or it tells me the third fret on the second string, or it could be the 5th fret. So again, it's fairly easy to follow tablature once you understand the principle. The only thing we don't get that from that is how long the notes last. So there's no rhythm involved with that, but it tells me where the note is on the guitar. So tablature is a really kind of easy, quick system of learning to find notes on the guitar. We can also use it for chords as well. So there's 2 kind of things we need to know about: chord boxes and tablature for these lessons, and that's really important. In terms of music reading, we don't go into that in these lessons, but that's something we can cover in future lessons. If you want to learn that, then I'll have a special module on that. But at the moment, we're just dealing with tablature and chord boxes to learn how to play songs, but also use scales on the guitar as well. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're now going to try our first chords on the guitar. So we're going to start with a couple of really simple chords that just require, the first one just requires 1 finger. So this is a G major chord shape. So what we're going to do is we'll take, the fingers are numbered from 1 to 4. So finger number 1 is the pointing finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, and your pinky this side is the 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the G major chord shape looks like this. I'm going to show you. We're just going to use the 3rd finger here on this note. Okay, which is at the first string at the 3rd fret, and with this hand either use your thumb, or if you're using a plectrum, we're going to rest that on the 4th string, and then we're just going to strum across all 4 strings. It sounds like this. Okay, so that's a G major chord. So what we want to do is try and get our finger as close as possible to the fret. Okay, so what I mean by that is you don't want it to be back here. You want it to be up here close to the fret, but not on top of the fret, just in front of it. And then we're just resting either the plectrum or the thumb on the 4th string and just strumming down like that, nice and simple. And that's a G major chord. That's the happy sounding chord. Okay, so let's do that a few times together. We're going to strum it and count 4. So from the 4th string, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and strum. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's strum it and count 4, and we'll strum it on the first beat of the bar. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's have a look at this hand for a minute. Okay, so there's 2 ways we can strum. We can either, for the moment, we can either use the thumb to strum. So if you're resting the thumb on the 4th string, okay, you're just strumming down like that. Okay, now one thing I do here, if you notice, I'm resting the kind of fingers here on the guitar. It feels a bit strange at first, but I find that if I have an anchor point on the guitar, it makes it easier to play. So I kind of don't float the hand like this, so it's not touching anything. I'm touching it on the guitar, so when I strum, the thumb comes back up to the right place. So that's probably a good method to start with. You've got an anchor there to hold you in place, but also to give you a more accurate strum on this hand. The same thing when I use the plectrum. If you watch this, I'm resting, tucking the fingers here, just resting on the guitar. Again, everybody has their own style when they strum, but this is a good way to start. Some people do it like this, and they rest with the fingers here. I like to tuck them in and just touch the guitar gently like that. Okay, there's another method. Some people rest on the bridge as well, so you can put your hand here, and that gives you again an anchor point as well. But really, you don't want to have at the moment you don't want to have the hand floating around, and it's hard then to strum. So that's a little tip that you can use. With this hand here, as I say, you've just got to have it nice and close to the fret, and that's nice and easy just using the 3rd finger. Okay, so that's our first chord. The second chord we're going to learn is an E major chord shape. So this one requires a few more fingers. So we'll start with the first finger. Again, fingers are from 1 to 4. So that's 1 is the pointing finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to start with the first finger. So the first finger goes on the 3rd string, and it goes at the 1st fret. So it's on the 3rd string at the 1st fret. Okay, that's there. The second finger is going to come across here, and it's going to go on the 5th string at the 2nd fret. And then finally the 3rd finger goes underneath that one, and it's going to go here, which is on the 4th string at the 2nd fret. And this one we're actually going to strum all 6 strings. Let me strum it for you first, and I'll talk about this hand. Okay, so that's strumming from the 6th string. Again, I'm resting here, I'm just strumming all 6 strings to get a nice sound. Now, on this hand here, I'll just talk a little bit about this hand first of all, which is really important. You notice the thumb's quite high here. This is the method I use. There's a kind of few different methods for actually playing chords in terms of where the hand lies. So for example, if you're playing classical guitar, they tend to have the thumb much lower down on the neck, in the middle of the neck here. And when you're playing acoustic guitar, electric guitar, I like to have the thumb quite high on the neck, but not touching the 6th string. So it's just kind of over the top. Again, you might need to adjust it depending on the size of your hands. But most importantly, you've got to curl the fingers over the other strings, because if you don't do that, if they flatten out, they're too flat, what happens is they touch the other strings, and then you get those kind of sounds. You get notes that don't come out, basically. So it's really important to curl the fingers and get a nice curl like that. Okay, so again, let me play this chord shape for you. You can hear, I'm hearing all the notes in the chord there. So if I didn't curl my fingers, it might sound like this. Might get that sound, which means my first finger is touching the 2nd string. So I've got to curl it a little bit more. So I push it that way. Again, bring the thumb up. Now I've got all the notes clear. So at first, when you're playing chords, and it's quite frustrating, you might find you get a few dead notes. That's quite normal. It's just a question of practice. Also, the other thing you might find is the fingers get a little bit sore to start with, depending on the type of guitar you have and the gauge of strings. So again, if you have a nylon strung guitar, more classical style, tend to be a bit softer on the fingers, whereas the steel strung ones tend to be a little bit more, bite into the fingers a little bit more. That will go away with a bit of practice. Again, if you do it on a regular basis and don't over practice, you'll develop a little bit of hard skin there, and that'll become a lot easier. So don't get put off by that. That's quite normal to have a little bit of discomfort on the fingers. Again, depends how much time you spend practicing. Okay, so that's E major chord shape. Okay, let's go back to our G major chord shape now. There it is there. That's just nice and simple one. That's G major. And now we're going to try this one. Get the first finger in place. Always get the first finger. That's your anchor. 2nd finger, and then 3rd finger, and then make sure you're curling the fingers, strum all 6 strings. Again, remember to rest with this hand. So that's our first 2 chords. That's an E major chord and a G major chord. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're now going to look at the first part of a C major scale. So the C major scale is a really important scale. That's the one where most of our music comes from in terms of melodies and chords and harmony and things like that. So understanding the C major scale and playing on the guitar is really important. So I'm going to play it in first position first of all. So you've probably seen people can play scales in many different positions on the guitar, but we want to start with the really simple scale in first position. Let me play the first part of it for you first of all. So this is the first 5 notes of C major scale. I'll call out the notes. The first note is C, then it's D, then it's E, and then it's F, and then it's G. So let's do that again as I'll play it, and then I'll talk you through it. So it's C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, which is actually the white notes on the piano, so it sounds like this. Okay, so that's the C major scale on the guitar. So starts on C, and we're going to start with the first finger here. We're going to play that at the 1st fret on the 2nd string. And again, what you do is you rest the plectrum on that 2nd string, and then get ready to play that. So we're just gently playing down to get 1 note. Okay, so you can just practice that 1 note to start with. Then we're going to go up to the next note, which is on the same string, the 2nd string at the 3rd fret, but we're going to use the 3rd finger here, look. So there's our first 2 notes. We've got C, and then we've got D. Now you can leave the first finger down. If you don't want to at the moment, you can take it off. I prefer if you leave it down if you can practice stretching, but if you have to take it off at the moment, that's fine. Later on we can put it down. As long as we get these notes. So it's C, and then it's D. The next note is the open 1st string. Now don't move the hand away from the guitar. What you want to do is be prepared for the next note. So basically you want to keep those fingers close all the time. So look, here's the first 3 notes. C, stretch up the 3rd finger, D, and then open 1st string. Okay, now again the plectrum's got to move to the 1st string there, or the thumb if you're using the thumb. And then we're going to go to the 1st fret here on the 1st string. Okay, and that's the next note, the 4th note, which is F. And the final note again, 3rd finger stretch up, and that's on the 3rd fret on the 1st string. Okay, so I'll do that very slowly. So it's C, stretch up to the D, open 1st string, 1st fret, 1st string, and then 3rd fret. Now notice what I'm trying to do. This is the difficult part. You've got to try and keep the fingers, anticipate what's coming next. So rather than the fingers going like this away from the guitar, I'm trying to keep them close all the time, which feels a bit unnatural. So you have to practice this a lot. So ideally what you want to get is so that you stretch the finger up. Look, there I'm stretching that finger up, keeping the first finger down, release them both. But notice how I'm keeping them close. I'm not doing this. I'm not taking away from the guitar. I'm keeping them close, ready for the next note. Then it's F, and then it's G. I'll do that again so you can watch my fingers. C, D, E, F, G. And again, it's about being coordinated with this hand. So that's why, again, I'm going back to what we did in the previous lesson, which is resting this hand here so that's an anchor point, so that I'm kind of can be accurate with the plectrum. If I don't do that, it's more difficult for me to control this hand here. Again, if you use the thumb, it's the same thing. I'm resting here, so I'll do it with the thumb now. So look, there's the C, there's the D, open E, F, and then G. Again, notice this hand is resting on the guitar. I'll do that again so you can see. So here's the C, there's the D, there's the E, there's the F, and there's the G. So what we're going to do now is practice that really slowly together. I'm going to count this in and we come in on 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we start. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, D, E, F, G. Okay, one last time. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then stop. So that's what you need to practice on a daily basis. Now that's going to help you with your chord playing and your coordination, just getting the fingers moving on the guitar. So scales, even if you're not going to solo, is a really good way of kind of getting your dexterity together and also your plectrum technique as well. So sometimes we might be playing little runs on the guitar in between the chords. So this will help you with all these things. So scales are really helpful for lots of things as well. But C major scale will help you understand the guitar, the theory, but also help you with your dexterity as well. So that's the scale, the first 5 notes of the C major scale we did there. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're now going to try a strumming exercise on the guitar. So this is to develop your right hand. So you can either do this with a plectrum or you can do this with the thumb, okay? So I'm going to use the plectrum for this one. So what we're going to do is we're not going to worry about playing a chord just yet. We're just going to actually practice striking the guitar. So let me show you the exercise. So what to do is just grab the guitar anywhere. So you're not pushing down on the strings. You just want what's called a ghost chord sound. So you get this sound. So it's muting the strings basically. So that's the sound you want to get. So what we're going to do with this hand, if you look here, I'm just going to strum 4 times with this hand and just get nice and relaxed. Again, it doesn't matter if you rest a little bit or float. I'll show you what I mean by that. But look, I'm going to rest here a little bit. So look, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm doing there is I'm resting the pinky and the other fingers on the guitar, so it gives me an anchor point. Again, some people don't do this. You can float and sometimes you swap between the two, and you can also rest here, so you can try it that way as well. I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to rest on the guitar. It always feels a bit awkward at first when people do this. Once you get used to it, it's really easy to do. But again, that's what I suggest to start with. Try using the anchor point. So all we're going to do is strum 4 times like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, we're not having to do anything with this hand at all. We're just grabbing the guitar and just touching the strings lightly so we get a muted sound. Let's try it together. So count out 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And stop there. Let's try that again. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So counting and strumming is a really important exercise to get used to, because apart from playing the chord shapes and the scales, we need this hand to be very coordinated, but we also have to have a good rhythmic sense. So that's the first exercise. The second one, if you're at this stage, is to try and play a chord and strum the chord at the same time. So this time we're going to take our E major chord shape that we learned in the previous lesson. Again, try and get all the notes clear if you can. And all we're going to do is just strum 4 times, all 6 strings. It should sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can stop. Let's just do that together after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And what I did there to stop the strings ringing, I just put the palm onto the guitar, then that stops the strings ringing out. Don't have to do that, but again, it's good practice. We'll be doing a lot of this later. So let's try that again. Same exercise. After 4, we're going to strum 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Okay, this time I'm going to do it with the thumb so you can hear the difference. It sounds slightly softer, so I'm going to just use the thumb to strum. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Okay, this time what we're going to do is we're going to keep going, but we keep counting. So we're going to do 4 bars. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then stop. So that's 4 bars of E, okay? Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Okay. So that's a really good exercise. That will help you to kind of get your rhythm together and your strumming action. Again, start with this one, just with the gross chord, just so you get that confidence of striking all the strings, okay? Later on, once we develop other chords, we might need to strum from a different string, but the E major chord's a good one to start with because that's a nice clear sound and it's all 6 strings. Generally, it's not too hard to play if you're a beginner as well. If you're not at that stage yet, then just practice this without the chord. Just counting out 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't seem like an important exercise, but rhythm is such an important element of playing guitar. It's a very percussive instrument. So if you do these exercises, once we actually play the chord shapes, if you've been practicing this as well, you'll find that you develop much, much quicker. So I'd add that into your practice routine. So you should be doing a little bit of scales, a little bit of chords, and a little bit of strumming practice all the time. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're now going to talk about changing chords, and the best way of practicing is changing chords. So I'm going to have a look at 2 chord shapes today. We're going to look at a new one. It's a D major chord shape and a G major chord shape, and how to practice changing those chords. And this applies to any chords that you're working on. So I'll play them first of all so you can hear what they sound like, and then I'll show you the shapes. So the first one I'm going to play is a D major shape, and I'm strumming from the 4th string there. The second one I'm going to play is a G major shape. Again, I'm strumming from the 4th string there. So watch this. I'm just going to play 4 beats on each chord, and then I'm going to tell you how to practice it. So it sounds like this. D major, 1, 2, 3, 4, G major, 2, 3, 4, back to G major, 2, 3, 4, and then G major. Okay, now notice what this hand does here. This hand is trying to kind of anticipate what's coming next. So I'm going to show you this very slowly. So let's do the D major chord shape first of all. So again, always get the first finger in place first of all. So the first finger is going to go here, which is on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret. The second finger is going to go here. It's on the 1st string at the 2nd fret. And then finally, you have to kind of stretch that 3rd finger out. That's going to go on the 2nd string at the 3rd fret. So kind of a little triangle shape there. And we're strumming with this hand from the 4th string. Again, this one, same as previous lessons, we have to curl the fingers. If you don't do that, at first you might get that sound, which means that that 3rd finger is not curling enough and it's touching that string there. So again, by curling the fingers, notice the thumb's quite high here. I'm using that method. And then we're curling the fingers over. So if you flatten the fingers out like that too much, you get dead notes. That sound. And that's what we don't want. So again, you might need to practice the shape before you practice changing to get a nice clear sound. So that's probably going to take you a couple of weeks or longer to get that chord shape sounding good. Now to practice changing, if you've done a little bit of work on your chords, what we want to do is just move that 3rd finger there down, which goes to the 1st string at the 3rd fret. So look how these other 2 fingers are not doing, they're not coming away from the guitar. I'm trying to keep them close because what I want to do is change back to that D shape. So watch this, look at my 1st and 2nd finger. When I change, the 3rd finger just moves down, but these 2 are just ready to go again, right? So when I go back to the D shape, so this is the method I'd use for practicing all my chords. So don't worry about strumming just yet. If you just actually focus on this hand here for a long time, then you can actually get much quicker at changing chords better. It's because you can focus on what this hand's doing rather than thinking about strumming at the same time. So watch this. So I'm going to change now to the G shape and then back to the D shape. So I'm looking at my hand, making sure the fingers aren't doing that. Okay, so they're staying close. And again, same thing when I go to there. I'm keeping these 2 fingers close. Now that might be quite hard at first because usually you don't really have to control the fingers that much. So you have to practice this over and over again, just going backwards and forwards so it starts to feel natural and you don't think about it too much. So again, if you do this on a daily basis, do it like 10 times every day, you'll find after a couple of weeks, it'll start to go a lot more naturally. Okay, so that's the first exercise when you're changing chords. Don't even think about strumming. Just work on the 2 shapes. So if you've got 2 shapes, a D shape to a G shape, go the backwards and forwards 10 times, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Once you can do that and it's starting to feel comfortable, then practice strumming as well. So remember, both times we're strumming from the 4th string. So rest the plectrum or thumb on the 4th string in the D shape and strum down. Again, keep this hand close, so don't bring it away from the guitar. Anchor point, and then same thing with the G chord. And then you go back again. Now what I'd like you to try and do, if you can, once it's starting to flow, is count 4 in each chord. So you do it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's another tip that's really important. So when you change, you leave it right to the last second. So notice I don't do this 1, 2, 3 and then take the fingers off. It's got to stay right to the last second, at the 4, and then you change, which is why we need to practice this a lot so it goes natural. So you don't want to do is 1, 2 and then take the fingers off, because as soon as you take the fingers off, the chord's gone. So it's got to be right till the last millisecond. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, then change. Okay, you see what happened there? It's very quick, right? So we did it right in the last second. So we landed on the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Same thing when you're going back. So that probably won't happen initially. You'll be struggling to get that in, very, very quickly, which again goes back to why I said practice for at least 2 to 3 weeks or longer, just going backwards and forwards so that you start to coordinate this hand first before you put the strumming in. And then you can start working on the strumming. Okay, so it's really important about getting the shapes and visualizing them on the guitar and getting used to changing backwards and forwards. So that's the first easy exercise for practicing changing chords. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. We're just going to talk a little bit about the different techniques of strumming the guitar and striking the guitar with the right hand. So let me play 3 different basic techniques that you can use. There's more, but I'll show you 3 at the moment. So the first one's using a plectrum. Plectrum you pinch here generally between the pointing finger and the thumb. Okay, I'm going to do it on an E major chord so you can see what happens. So with this, I'm pinching the plectrum here. Again, there's different types of plectrum, so you might need to buy a couple of different ones to find out which one works for you. This one's a kind of medium gauge, not too thick and not too small. So different plectrums depending on the sound you want. Okay, so let's have a look at striking the guitar. So basically with the guitar, with the plectrum, what I tend to do is rest on the guitar, and that way when I'm hitting a chord, I can be really accurate with this hand. There's different ways of playing. For example, some people, as I said, use the bridge as an anchor point and do that. Okay, so I'm resting the palm here on the bridge of the guitar. Some people try and float the plectrum or the hand as well, so that they're not actually anchored onto anything. Sometimes we do that if we're using a certain strum pattern. But I like to start with, for most beginners, to get accuracy, especially when they're strumming chords from other strings. If you have an anchor point here, I find that it makes it easier then to be more accurate. So I'm strumming from the 4th string for that chord. For an A chord, I might strum from the 5th string, A minor, and the other chord I might strum from the 6th string. So if I have this anchor point here, then it's much easier to kind of coordinate this right hand. Same thing when we're doing the thumb. Okay, so I'm going to use the thumb now. So again, 6th string, look, that's all 6 strings. So again, I'm anchoring on the guitar here, okay? And as I said in early lessons, it sometimes makes it a little bit awkward at first. It feels a bit uncomfortable, but if you stick with it, you don't even notice that. I use it all the time. So it's your preference. If you don't like that, then maybe try resting on the bridge or something else. Okay, and then the other method as well is where we can use the fingers. This is a more classical technique where, for example, we might pinch the guitar strings like this. What I'm doing there is you're using the thumb to play the 6th string and these 3 fingers to hold these 3 notes here, and then I'm just pinching together to get the sound. So that way we can pick out individual notes as well as chords. Again, this is more of the classical style, and again it's a good one to have for certain types of songs because we might want to make it more intricate if we can do that. So that's a good method as well. To start with, if you're a complete beginner, I would suggest starting just either with the plectrum or the thumb, just so you can get to play some chord shapes and get comfortable with that first of all. And then later on, once you progress, you can try more intricate picking patterns with the right hand or using the pinching technique. Again, I go into that in other lessons. So those are the 3 basic ways of striking the guitar. There's other ones. There's more like the flamenco one, where you're kind of using the thumb and the other fingers as well. We'll look at them in other lessons, but for the moment, for an absolute beginner, I would suggest either starting using the thumb to strum the chords and pick the scales, or try a plectrum as well. There's a few other types of plectrums as well as one that you put onto your thumb. Again, these are all the things you can add in later on and look at in future lessons we'll look at these things. But to start with, as I say, you want to just start with just strumming the chords and getting a nice comfortable position, and most importantly strumming from the correct string when you do learn the new chord shapes. Welcome to Miracle Guitar Lessons. I'm just going to talk a little bit about learning songs on the guitar. I think this is a really important and fun aspect of learning guitar. So the first thing we want to do to get to playing songs, we just need to learn a few chord shapes on the guitar. And generally, if we learn 10 or 12 chord shapes in the first position, we can play lots and lots of songs. There's basically three types of chords that we use in songs. There's more, but the basic three types are the major chord, which sounds like this, happy sounding chord, minor sounding chord, which sounds like this, kind of got a sadder sound. Here's the major one, happy, and here's the minor one, sad. And the other chord shape that we use in some songs is a dominant 7th chord, or just called a 7th chord. So this is C7. So that's kind of like a more jazzy, bluesy, more colourful sounding chord. So that's our three basic chord types. So what we want to do if we want to learn songs is learn as many chords as possible in first position, but also really important is learn how to strum as well, and that's one aspect that a lot of people miss out. So really strumming in time is really important, and again we can use our backing tracks for that. Most songs, or a lot of pop songs, only have 3 chords in them, or sometimes 4 chords, so they're actually quite easy to learn lots of songs very quickly if you know a few chords on the guitar. And really an important aspect, as I say, is being able to change the chords quickly in time and then being able to strum in time. So these are the things that we'll be developing over the coming weeks with each module. But it's really important to develop all 3 things. So you want to be able to develop your chord shapes, understanding, memorizing them and learning them so you memorize the shapes, and then being able to strum with this hand in time. So again, I'll show you some exercises for that. And then also, if you can, do some scale practice, even if you don't want to solo, which will help your dexterity as well. So those are the 3 things I recommend practicing if you want to learn songs. Make sure you do all 3, and that'll help you then to learn much quicker.